driving that particular message. To the extent that, it's literally off the table, again, helps it to be figuratively off the table. It's just one less thing for somebody to talk about, or in the decision-making process, even if they decide to be here, one less thing to grumble about.
And that decision, those decisions show up most, in our instance, most pronounced on City Avenue. I mean, that's where that particular piece of the rubber meets the road. And it's sort of self-evident that if you're going to be here, you can decide to be this side or that side, and it has tremendous tax implications.
Sure.
So it is worth real somethings to an awful lot of businesses. As you go up and down, however, in looking at other cities, the dynamic is different. I mean, if you start looking at state and local income taxes, we certainly have the highest city-based income tax, without a doubt. New York is, I think, second, at least of the majors. But
depends on the income level.
But some of them are progressive income taxes. Right. Most of them are progressive income taxes. Ours is flat. But when you add in the state, particularly as you get to fairly modest levels of income in other states, tax rates are serious at state levels, and so the combined totals, at least at the personal income level, we're not bad relative to our friends up and down the East Coast. Business taxes, Rob said, some have, some don't. It varies. And now, Rob, I'm going to ask you to comment.
I mean, our tax structure is different from other places.
Right.
In general, we're higher and more reliant on wage tax and business taxes, whereas most places are reliant on property taxes. We do think that it would help over time to be able to lower those rates. Obviously, there are financial challenges to doing that. So in our plan, we start to resume wage and business tax cuts in 2014, and then we assume that they will continue going into the future. They're modest cuts, but we hope to have them continue annually. We're looking at different ways to attack our business tax structure, and as we talked about, most places don't have a business tax, or they definitely don't have the type that we have. The tax task force, Tax and Economic Competitive Task Force, recommended that we look at a couple of particular types of ways of changing our business privilege tax. We've run a couple of pilots on those. I'm going to let Keith kind of walk through some of the detail on that.
Yes, we instituted for tax year 2010, this following year, two programs: the market-based sourcing, which is looking at businesses in the city of Philadelphia that are primarily doing business or their clientele outside of the city. We also looked at doing the single sales factor for a portion of businesses within New York City research and development areas and life sciences. It's about 1,000 businesses in the next codes for those industries. Again, everyone hasn't filed yet because they have the extension to October 15th. We did make a requirement that those businesses did file that way. We recognize for them being based in Philadelphia, they will probably pay less tax than the businesses that are not from Philadelphia. So we're looking for the numbers. We should have to.
So kind of the end of the year, we'll get a sense of
finally November, December, we'll have an idea what the numbers look like, so we can report that.
That'd be helpful.
And that's a multi-year pilot. We want to see what kind of effect it has over time.
Those two initiatives.
Yeah.
And we were aggressive in getting the information out to the businesses that could take advantage of that.
Yes.
These two pilots.
Yes, we sent out about 1,000 letters to those businesses in the city limits.
And then another big issue we have is with our property assessment system. I guess it's fair to say that that's broken, and we're working on fixing it because we want our system to be understandable and fair and equitable. And so, we'll have that done next year, and that should help make the tax system make more sense.
Right. And Richie and his team are literally now out on the street.
They're out in the field.
Building surveys?
Mm-hmm. We're looking at buildings, talking to homeowners. And that's been going really well. People are actually happy to see them. I don't know whether they'll be the same in future years, but this year they're
This year.
And another thing that drives people crazy about taxes is they think other people aren't paying, and they don't think that they are having to pay is fair. So, I mean, we've been fairly aggressive about trying to improve our collections. And Keith will kind of walk us through some of the things we've been doing and what's happening with law and revenue.
As you're aware, starting the first of the fiscal year, the law tax unit now reports to the Revenue Department, trying to take the model that most states use, that the Chief Counsel's office kind of reports up to the Secretary Commissioner of the Revenue Department, also a direct line to the city solicitor. Working with them, we're trying to be more strategic and methodical in how we do our business. It's telling taxpayers from now on, you can't look for a deal. If you don't like what we said in taxpayer services, you're going to go to the law department now. So we're going to be on the same page with what our decisions are going to be. We're making more aggressive to start having outreach as we try to move forward, trying to do more outbound callings. We did a pilot of that on the water and taxes last year. It seemed to be pretty successful. We're trying to be more aggressive with the first 90 days of cases. We don't make the contact to those taxpayers, so they don't think about us and they will take care of their other creditors. So we want to be more in the front to let them know that, hey, we are here, we're doing business. We're trying to progressively work with the DA's office on potentially trying to prosecute trust fund taxes, your wage tax, your parking tax, things that you're remitting on behalf of the consumers. And again, we're continuing to look at various pilot programs within our audit group, different sectors and businesses within the city and outside of the city limits as well. So we're looking forward to the 72 individuals from the law group moving over to work with us. We're creating a tax clearance unit. The tax clearance unit now will be responsible for working with various nonprofits in the city, hopefully several universities and some of the quasi agencies. If you have a vendor that's working for contracts coming to you, make sure they're paying tax compliant before you have them do business in the city of Philadelphia. So everyone seems to be eager to work with us on that. We think that'll be productive and capture them while they're in the city before they leave the city. So we're looking forward to continue to come up with projects and programs to help increase revenue.
Christian, let me ask you about, I heard what you said earlier about, there are people who, I believe, and I've talked to a few taxpayers in my time, who actually want to pay and can't pay, and things just happen, pre-recession and certainly during the recession. There are those who owe and know they owe, don't want to pay. And then there's, in a big city like ours, there's a million stories out here, and all kinds of things happen to folks. We do, in fact, make agreements with people. I mean, we obviously prefer compliance and getting an agreement before doing all the other extraordinary things which result in more expense to the city government. What I want to make sure is that every citizen can avail themselves of as much information as possible about coming in as early as you can in the process. Don't ignore the notices. Don't think that they're just going to go away. Or you get to a point where the bill is so big and you just say, well, there's no way in the world I can ever pay this. And they're never going to talk to me unless I have full payment, which I believe is not exactly true.
It is not true.
Right.
Again, if someone gets in a situation, we don't look for full payment. We will take payment agreements. We will work with individuals due to the circumstances. Again, it's case-by-case situations.
I understand that. I think part of the other concern is, as regular taxpayers are always worried that someone else is not paying their taxes. Some taxpayers may be concerned that, this one got a special deal somehow because, they called somebody or they had a special secret phone number or whatever the case may be. So, do we have, some general parameters, written guidelines that, when you call us, here's the story. We're looking at, what is your financial circumstance? We're looking at documents. There are parameters around how we ultimately reach agreement with the taxpayer in a case of other than full and complete payment all at one time. Talk about that and try to dispel some of the ideas or notions around, people doing secret things behind closed doors.
Sure. With all payment agreements for any taxpayers, we do have parameters. Traditionally, we look for 25% up front. Again, if someone cannot pay that 25% up front, it needs an approval by the director or someone above that. Again, there's a lot of situations, individuals in hardship conditions because of medical or the economic circumstances that happened in the last couple of years. We will work with those individuals on special circumstances that we have within our parameters. Again,
Is this something that's printed? I mean, could someone go somewhere and get a document
it's
to say?
internal for us, not for the public. It's not a situation the public has this document, and they can say, well, I'm going to fit in this program here. So it's not a situation like
But what
that.
about just some general components? Or general information?
We can provide you information, let people know that it's 25% minimum down payment, those things of that nature. Everyone pretty much knows that we do have hardship agreements, as with the law tax unit as well. Again, that is a matter of people bringing in their financial statements so we can review them.
Or even that information. So, I mean, my only request is that we take a look at both putting up on your website, the big front page of the city site, or wherever else we're going to put it, libraries, et cetera, try to come up with at least some kind of guide that tells folks, if you find yourself in this situation, the city is willing to work with you. We have a number of different programs, strategies, criteria, et cetera, many of which are personal to or pertinent, directly to that particular individual. But there's not, something else, shaky or nefarious or inappropriate going on somewhere else, and that people are making phone calls and, kind of getting the hookup. And that's not the business that we're in.
We don't do that.
Okay. All right. You'll put one of those together?
Sure.
Okay. All right. Sorry.
Anything else, Walt? Just one last comment that's on there at the end about the value proposition. Taxes, cost effective, they're all value propositions. I won't disclose which relative of mine, but a relative of mine who lives in northern Jersey pays the most ungodly amount of money I've ever seen for a person in property taxes. It's staggering. And his value proposition is, I have 2 kids in the public system that if I didn't have in the public system, I'd be paying more money. Right, and so that's his value proposition, and in 3 years, when the second kid, goes to college, we'll see.
Right.
We'll see what he thinks then. But it's a staggering amount of money. But in his case, he thinks, okay, I'm getting value
Worth the value.
now. All right, let's go on. This next piece is about the Office of Business Services. This was reorganized during this administration. Curtis Gregory leads the office, works with Kevin sort of on the day-to-day growth of it. And what this chart simply says is that since its organization back in early 2010, the number of cases that are reckoned with has steadily increased. There's a little bit of ups and downs, but the overall thing is it's steadily increased because we have a very good staff who are out in the neighborhoods throughout the city. It's broken down by geography. So, Curtis, how many people are we talking about? How many sectors?
At the time of this report, it was 6. We're now up to 7.
Geographic sectors.
Geographical sectors, correct.
Could you give us an example of like what a geographic sector means?
For instance, I'll start with Sandy King. She has what we would call the Northeast. I wish we had the map in here. I could really show you which. You got to help me on Councilmatic District. I think that's Krajewski.
10, 6.
And O'Neill, but essentially
Cut off the top part.
Bustleton Avenue North. You can essentially, I might have my Bustleton as Cotman, but Bustleton Avenue North, Cotman Avenue North. You
One
have-
person for Center City. I've got Bob Colazzo kind of in that middle section covering Keona Sanchez, and I'm visualizing it, but
Okay. So there are these geographic sectors. They're reasonable size. We have staff assigned to each one. Their job is to be out there. Be out there more than they're inside. Talking to businesses. And the key thing is making sure that businesses know that this service exists.
And what are they doing?